Hello, welcome to the table. My name's Jonathan.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Mark.
And this is my top 30 games of all time. Last week we did 30 down to 21. This is the middle 10, so 20 down to 11. And yeah, so one thing I've noticed is that my top 30 in general tends to focus on Euros, heavy Euros usually, and adventure thematic games, let's say. And just looking through my list, this 10 is very Euro focused. So I imagine there'll be quite a few that Steve will approve of here. But yeah, let's see what there is.
Number 20.
First up then is Goucher and Clever, or That's Pretty Clever, I think they translated it as in the end, which is the roll and write one. And it's my favourite roll and write out of all of them. Really like this one. So it does feel like a Euro, despite the fact that it's a very small package and doesn't take very long. It still has that combo-y interacting mechanism goodness that you get in good Euros. Essentially, you're rolling dice and you're picking one dice to use and you're kind of crossing off various sections on your roll and write paper. But then whatever you pick, you're locking all the other dice that are lower than it so you can't use them. And that's the interesting decision here. The other thing is that when you're doing that, other people will get to use one of the locked dice, so you're always invested on other people's turns, which makes it very interesting. So it's fairly dry. There's very little, in fact, there's no theme here at all, if we're honest. But that doesn't bother me. Just the, filling your grid in various ways, trying to decide, am I better doing lots of blue, of the blue section this time, or the yellow one, or the orange one. There's so many different ways, and a lot of them will, when you get so far on one track, it lets you unlock things on another track. It's really, really enjoyable.
I think it's great deciding when to use your rerolls and your copies, and you can plus one someone else's locked dice. Kind of saying, I could take this, but then I give him the number he needs. Maybe I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to reroll things. So there's a bit of interaction there, but generally you're playing the best for yourself. And I actually think adding theme to this would make it worse.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think the fact that it has no theme is to its credit, because it's short and sweet, and that's all it needs and wants to be.
Yeah.
The speed of it plays, the ease of the teach, and the size of the package all work really well. There aren't many that can do all those things quite so well.
Brings me to a question then. Is pasted on theme worse than no theme at all for you? It's a lot of the time, the theme just pasted on. But if it has no theme, and they're not even trying to be thematic.
I think some games need theme. If it's a longer Euro, like a 2-hour Euro, there needs to be something. I can't just be rolling dice for 2 hours.
This gets away with it because it's a 20 to 30 minute game, not a 2+ hour.
That's right.
So that's list fine. Of mechanisms that have all been put together.
So as much as I dislike pasted on theme, it's better than no theme generally.
Number 19.
This one is straight into heavy Euro territory. This is Gugong, which was Essen last year, I think, when it came out. And I loved this the very first time I played it, bought it on the spot. It's the one where you are effectively playing cards. It's like a worker placement game, but in terms of taking actions, you put a card onto a spot to take the action. And depending on what the card is, tells you, well, first of all, you have to play a card on the spot with a higher number. So that restricts what spots you can go onto, although you can play on 1 on top of a 9, so it kind of wraps around in that sense. But then when you play the card, as well as doing the action of the space where you're putting the card itself has an action. And it might be that some actions work better with other actions. So you're like, I could put this card in this location, and I'd do that action and then this action, or I could put it here and do this action and then that action. Or I could play this other card instead. It can be quite AP prone because there's a lot of different combinations, even with just like 4 cards in your hand. It's like, oh, do I do this one or this one? And then, of course, you're trying to plan your turns is difficult because as people put cards down, the board changes in front of you. And so it's like, I really want to go on that spot, or I could possibly do that spot as well. But then someone goes around and they take that spot, and then someone else puts a high number on this spot. It's like, oh, I can't do either of those spots now. And so sometimes you can feel like you're picking the best of a bad lot. But it's just, I mean, it's a Euro. You're trying to gain points in lots of different ways. But really, really interesting thought processes throughout this one.
Yeah, it's got 2 really nice things. One of them is the card, when you cover up the card, you get the card beneath it. So there's another reason to go, there's a 3 there, I'll put my 7 on that 3. Well, maybe you could do it a bit cheaper, but more importantly, you get the 3 with the ability on. You could have put the 7 on the 6, but you really want that 3 for the next turn for the ability, and so on. And then the other nice thing is that if you're not at the top of the middle track, you can't win the game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is amazing. I haven't seen that in another game, but basically, like you're appeasing the Emperor. I can't remember the theme behind doing so, but over the course of the game, you're trying to get to the top of the central track, and if you're not at the top, you can't win. Whatever your score is, you can't win. And the game we played, I've only played it once. Mark and I got to the top of the track relatively early on in the game, and we could spend the last round or two doing what we wanted. And Jonathan and Noah were like, oh my god, and they spent the whole last turn trying to get to the top of the track, but obviously they weren't then increasing their score.
The worst thing is you can go to a particular space to get an action token, and you can put it on any other spaces, which means every time someone else does that action, you get a victory point. So of course they put it on the track where we needed to go up. Yeah. Like every time I go there, it's like, oh, I'm just giving Steve points. And Mark,
again. We do it. It's good like that. My one negative about this is it's very reactive. Like Jonathan says, until it gets to your turn, you don't know your full scope of actions.
Yeah, you said you've hated that with game 4 because ultimately it means that you can only really approach your next turn really as the player coming towards you is taking their turn.
You'd like to think you'd be able to do that, and maybe you can. Maybe you've got a 9. Maybe you can always go in that spot. But like, it's not, obviously if they've put like a 2 there, you don't want to waste a 9 on a 2 or something or whatever. Yeah. But like, you always want to take the best action available to you, and you don't know what that is until it's your turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's one of those games that without the card play and the middle track, I'm not sure it'd be great because I think the individual actions are not especially interesting. It is purely just the number and the stress of that and hoping beyond a play card, which pushes it up.
I think it's great. It's very good. I've only played it once though, so it wouldn't really, just that one time.
Let's play it again.
Yeah.
Number 18.
This one has been on my list for many years now, and that is The Voyages of Marco Polo. As dice placement games go, you can't really get much better than this one. It's super tight. Everything's really tight in this game. Money's really tight. Travelling's really difficult to do, even though it looks like it should be like Ticket to Ride. Oh, I'll go here and complete this little contract, and I'll go here. But it's just very hard to actually move across the map. The interesting thing is that you can only place... Well, at least you can place a dice on any spot, even if someone else has put the dice there, but then you have to pay extra coins, which is what makes money so incredibly tight if you go there. And so it's very difficult thinking about, well, I could go here and effectively just get this action for free, but I really want that action, but then I've got to pay for it because someone else has already gone there. So you're kind of racing for the good actions first, which makes it more expensive for everyone else. And it's very interesting. Essentially, you're just collecting resources and cashing them in for points. The strategy in terms of how you move across the map is quite interesting. There's like 4 parallel tracks, and when you first play, you don't really appreciate. It's very difficult to move down or up the map. You can go sideways quite easily, but going up or down is very difficult. So you need to think early on about what strategy you're going to use. Essentially, you start in Venice, and you work your way across to Beijing. But you need to think carefully about what routes you're going to take as you head over there. And the best thing, of course, that everyone always talks about is the player powers, which are broken, as they say. They're all very, very powerful, and you always think everyone else's player power is much better than yours. The one where someone gets to roll their dice at the start of the round, and then they get to choose whatever numbers they like on the dice, instead of using the numbers they've actually rolled, just seems crazily powerful, but all of the powers are just as powerful as that. It's very satisfying.
I think it's very good. I think the dice placement mechanic is maybe not as strong as Bora Bora, but the game might be better. I think the overriding game of it, the player powers just make the game, and I think Mark will agree that it's probably the best thing about the game. As of making this list, there is a game called Marco Polo 2, or Voyages of Marco Polo 2, which is we haven't had access to yet, and I imagine from looking at it, it will be as good, if not better. I think they've made travelling easier. In fact, they've made travelling more important. I think it's a bit easier, but you have to pick up your contracts from the locations you visit rather than from a communal display at the bottom, so you can't just sit back and do contracts.
Yeah, okay, that's good. So yeah, I very much look forward to playing that one.
Yeah, I think this is still my favourite dice placement game. Partly because of the powers, but partly because I think the tightness works very well. And I think I do, despite the stressful nature of the game, I always have fun every time I played it, and there's a lot of equivalents where at times I'll be like, I'm just not enjoying this. Like, I know you guys really love Bora Bora, but there's times I've just had bad games and just like, this just hasn't sparked. Well, I don't think I've had a bad game if they've all been really, really hard because of the movements.
Yeah. It's very good.
Number 17.
My next one is a game I played just a couple of weeks ago with some friends who I don't normally play games with, actually, and they had a great time playing this, which is the Oracle of Delphi, which is probably my favourite Stefan Feld game. I think in general he does very solid games, if a little bit dry for my taste, but this is the most thematic of them. And it's very different from the others in that you're just not scoring points. Essentially, it is a race. You're racing around the Greek islands in your boat, attempting to complete the 12 tasks of Zeus. And there's a bit of sort of pick up and deliver going on, but there's lots of ways to make your actions more powerful. By completing certain tasks, you can unlock special abilities, which makes it easier to complete other tasks. And when you first kind of lay out the game, there's a nice kind of variable board each time. You really need to sit there for just a couple of minutes and plan out, okay, these are the tasks I need to complete, because everyone gets slightly different ones depending on the initial seeding of the board. And it's like, I'm probably better off going this way because I can do these 3 tasks quite easily here, but then I need to go over here and do those 2 tasks. But someone's probably going to race me for these ones, so maybe I need to do that one first before coming over here. So there's just lots of interesting planning in terms of like that spatial moving around the board, racing other people to certain spots, which I really enjoy.
I love this game. I think it's amazing. I think for everything Jonathan says, I think planning your route ahead, this might be the best route, but if you just quickly go over there, fight that monster and get a bonus, that makes the rest of the game better for you. The god powers are not broken, but bonkers good. So spending your first turn just moving up on some god tracks, because you get the kind of siphon off movement on the god tracks when other people roll a dice. At the end of Jonathan's turn, they roll a dice, and everyone but Jonathan can move up a god if it matches one of the colours of dice. So me preemptively moving some of my gods off the bottom so that it can start moving up to the top is really good, but then you're slowing down, you're not getting as early bonuses.
Yeah.
I think it's really good, and the fact is you're only getting 3 actions a turn. You can complete 5 tasks in a turn if you do things well. You can use all your bonus powers and your extra cards and your special player ability as well. I think it's brilliant.
It's one of these where you can build up and have one of those monster turns and complete lots of tasks all at once.
Yeah.
I think it has to be praised for just being so different and almost thematic. But in many ways, I do feel like it's a race, and you can see that race on the board in front of you, and that makes a huge difference. Rather than being so abstracted away, I can feel the pressure of whether you can also feel the pressure of falling behind, which come in negative. But it has to be praised for just feeling different.
I always get a bit surprised by when you read on the forums people who like Stefan Feld games not liking this one and not rating this one as high.
It is strange. That does seem to happen.
Yeah. Whether they just they want the dry points kind of churning engine or not. But apart from the points, it feels like a Feld game. It really does.
Yeah.
Number 16.
Right, next entry is my second favourite Euro, I think, as it stands, which is the old favourite Russian Railroads. It's one I keep coming back to and would happily play again and again and again, really. It's very dry. There's a sort of loosely tacked on railroad theme, but I love the different tracks, if you like, the way you're kind of moving your own personal trains and track along, and trying to get as far as you can on 1 or maybe 2 of the tracks to unlock the special abilities. It's just a really nice unlocking system. If I get this far on this track and put the right train there, I can unlock this, which means we get this special power, which means we get this train, which means I can immediately unlock this other power on this other track, and that comboing thing is great. It's one of those that really builds, and you score very few points in the first couple, 2 or 3 rounds, but then it starts to build and build and build, and by the end of it, you're scoring hundreds of points potentially each round. So it's very satisfying. We've talked about it quite a lot over the years, but if you like a solid Euro, they don't get much better than this, in my opinion.
It's by far my favourite worker placement game. It's so tight, and it's one of those ones that I've just had my go, right, okay, by the time it comes back to me, there's 3 things I want to do, that, and that, and invariably it goes, he takes that, she takes that, he takes that. And it happens every single time. You're like, oh, there's one person to go, please don't go there, and they go there. And it's just a sign of a really good game. It's so tight. I don't like the expansions because they loosen it up a bit, and you don't get that. And I really like that part of the game.
Yeah, I think everyone knows I really like it. It's probably might be my favourite workplace game. Need to have a think on that one. But yeah, it's been in every one of our lists, Rob, because I think it's been in every one of our lists for every year we've done this. I don't see that changing anytime soon. Yeah, I just think it as a go. Would it be as good if the points didn't go so mental? I don't know. But
No,
the
it's
fact
unique.
that they do, it's great. It's just like I like the fact that I know I'm going to do better every turn, and just see it just go explode off like a rocket. It's
very
something
satisfying.
yeah, that's it. It's like, wow, I'm just looping round.
You managed to get 10
Yeah.
points one round. The next round, I managed to get 30 points. That's way more than last round. And then you get 60 points. Oh, woohoo! You just feel great every round because you're doing so much better than you were in the previous round.
It's a very good game.
Number 15.
So it's time to end the run of Euros for
This is your
now.
favourite Euro of all time at the moment.
So no. So this is not going to be a Euro. There is another Euro, but it's higher up on the list. This is one which I think technically hasn't come out this year, but is new to my list this year, and that's Heroes of Terran Off. Mainly because I just played it quite a bit. Went to France with some friends in September and played it there. Had a really great time, and it's simple but works really well for a co-op small box card adventure game. It's really, really fun. Essentially, you kind of pick a hero and you have 4 main cards, and on your turn you're using one of these cards to do an action. But the cooperative part of it is really, really important. Monsters kind of come out of a deck in the middle and you have to fight the monsters, and like a quest, you're doing a bit of travelling to try and get through the cards on the quest. And all that, it reminds me a little bit of Lord of the Rings, the card game, actually, in the way that it does all that lot. But the really great thing about it is that with some of your actions, you can take them to help someone else. So the order in which people take actions sometimes is quite important, and depending on the monsters that you're fighting, it might be that someone you're playing with is engaged with a monster, and rather than you attacking the monster directly, it might be better for you to do an action that buffs them, so that when they attack, they get a super duper attack and kind of take out the monster. You've got different classes, so again, like your healers, your tanks, damage dealers, all the rest of it. But the interplay between the characters works really well. It plays very well 2-player, but equally plays very well 3 or 4-player as well. So really enjoy playing this one. And there's a bunch of scenarios that come in the box. I've played through quite a few of them now, but I'm still very happy, keen to play the remaining few scenarios that I've got in the box.
Is this the one Andy Pelton had?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so I know of it, I just haven't played it.
Yeah. I don't think you'd like it.
I don't think I would.
I've played it twice, and once as the Warhammer Quest variation. Which
That's
is
right. It's the remake of Warhammer Quest.
Where I think of it, it's very cooperative and very, very hard.
So Warhammer Quest is very hard. This one isn't. They've scaled the difficulty much better. So you can pick different scenarios and it shows you the difficulty. And the easy introductory scenario in this really is an easy introductory one, whereas the introductory one from Warhammer Quest was too hard.
I don't think I've played the introduction one for this either, so
okay.
I think my experience is just hard. but yeah, Jonathan's right. There's a lot of table talk that goes on in this because there has to be. You won't beat the normal level stories unless you do.
There aren't many actions, in order to get through, which means for each action, a bit like, it reminds me to a certain extent of playing, when we went through Pandemic Legacy Season 2, I think, where the games aren't that long in terms of actions. You have to think very carefully about each of the actions to really maximise, because if you make a bad decision, you could just shoot yourself in the foot. So if you want a sort of small footprint, small box adventure game, doesn't take too long, cooperative, they don't get any better than this. I think it does a great job for what it is.
Number 14.
The previous iteration of this game has been on my list for many years, but this year Arkham Horror 3rd edition came out. In fact, was it this year or last year? But maybe earlier this year. It improves on the previous one. I love the previous one because it feels epic. There's lots of story which is a little bit random, and the mechanisms are fine. There's some interesting things happening there, but the new edition, the 3rd edition, still retains a lot of the story and the flavour, and they've done a good job of making the stories more sensible in terms of progression and not just random events taking place, but you actually feel like you're working through a story in that sense. It's a more like traditional Pandemic style co-ops in terms of the way they've done it.
Yes.
With monsters spawning, you have to run over here to take care of these monsters, and then more spawn over there, you run back and you try and deal with those. So you're running around trying to deal with all that. The spatial element, in terms of moving around, the interconnected little circly things, works well. In many ways, it's a streamlined, improved version of the 2nd edition. And I love the 2nd edition. As I say, it's been on my list for many years. So if you like Arkham Horror and you've not tried the 3rd edition yet, I'd highly recommend it. I do think it's really, really strong.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very different one to me to ever. The second edition is a very good game, but there's no reason I'd ever advise somebody to play that over this.
Not anymore.
It's easier, it's quicker.
Strictly better than.
It's just. I think you're right. The biggest thing you notice it is slightly more gamery in the fact that you do get a pandemic feel of dealing with firefighting and stuff like that, and the way the deck cycles through, if I remember right, and stuff like that, which reminds me a little of Pandemic. But that's not a bad thing. I think it just makes a little bit. There's still all the story and bit going on there, if not more, in fact, because each turn takes less time. You get more time to actually have the story rather than slowly stuff going through. Yeah, it's just a better game. I wouldn't choose to play either Eldritch or Arkham Horror any over this. It's just strictly the better one, as Steve said.
The older one, the second edition, came from a time when theme was everything. And you'd sort of throw in a few mechanisms there, try and make it interesting. Really, the theme was the main thing people went to it for. But over the years, that has changed, fortunately, and the importance of having solid mechanics in the game has, been incorporated into many, many otherwise just sort of thematic games, really. And they've done a great job with this.
As the shortening of games in general, I think the days of the 4-hour plus game are pretty much gone. There are a few
Depends who you play with.
Yeah, that is a fair point. But there are that as a design point is a rarer thing now. People who say this, I'm doing a big game, they will specifically say, "This is a long game." As if that's a selling point if you want to play a long game. Think of the Massive Empire games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's now a selling point because there are fewer of them now.
Yeah, true.
Number 13.
This next one has been on my list for a few years now, and it has not dropped down, but usually it comes with Exit, and that is Unlock. So Exit has dropped down, effectively. It was on my previous 10. But Unlock has remained just as strong for me, and mainly that's because they've retained the thematic nature and even improved on how thematic their games are, but they've also improved on the puzzle aspect for me. The biggest sort of USP, if you like, for them is the use of the app, and they've actually come up with very creative ways this year of using the app. I particularly liked the set of games that had the dinosaur one.
The Child's Nightmares one, is that the one? Or the Retro Arcade one?
Are there all three of them?
No, they're doing different ones.
Not the Retro Arcade one.
So the Child's Nightmares and then the Shahrazad.
Yeah,
yes, you're right.
I thought it was a great set. Again, don't want to give away any spoilers, but they're using features of a device, like a tablet, in ways that they haven't really used before, which made it very interesting and innovative, yes. So they're being innovative in the way that they can, but making it more of a story. And so I love all the escape room games. I mean, I'd always happily play any of them, to be honest. But Unlock are now the standout favourites for me personally.
I still think you occasionally have an Unlock where the whole thing goes, I didn't like that. Like the whole thing. Like I think we had that in the most recent box. Is it the Timeless Adventures? It was a great box. It had Dr. No Side again, then it had this weird Orphans in Paris one, which we didn't really like.
Yeah, there was issues with that one.
But the third one, the time travel one, is the most thematic one I've ever done. I think the way it links. I can't spoil it. But that for me is I think that might be my favourite one, even though the puzzles might not have been the best in it. Like there might have been better puzzles than some of the other ones. I think the theme and just what you're trying to do and how the game integrated the theme of time travel into it. I don't think you'll ever get that in any sort of escape room game.
It was very clever.
Yeah. Have you played it yet, Mark?
No, I'm going to play them over Christmas.
Okay,
I'm potentially holding them off and playing for using over the Christmas nights that is coming out soon.
No spoilers then.
Yeah,
but,
no spoilers.
Yeah, it's very good.
Number 12.
This is currently my favourite Euro, and that is Maracaibo, which is the new entry to the list. It's hard to explain. I mean, we talked about it. It was on my top 5 games of 2019. But just really enjoy the experience of playing this one. It incorporates a lot of mechanisms that Alexander Pfister's used in his other games. We were saying, weren't you? It's quite similar to Great Western Trail in some ways, but it's a definite improvement on that. It incorporates some of the things from Mombasa in terms of trying to get up on those like share tracks, if you like. You want to be going up on the track that other people are also going up on, so they're trying to get the cubes out, which makes it more valuable. You score more points. So lots of interesting things like that. But the ship you were talking about, upgrading your ship, because there's lots of different ways you can upgrade your ship, which makes it, sail faster, or you're getting better actions when you take actions. And you can never do everything on your ship. So trying to decide which way you're going to upgrade your ship this time is really interesting. As a package, love the artwork as well. Oh, and the going through the jungle is really satisfying because you're kind of racing to various spots in the jungle. It's just really, really enjoy it. I can't quite put my finger on what it is, but it's just a great collection of interesting Euro mechanisms, kind of tried and tested. I think you said it was his greatest hits.
Yeah, I think somebody said it's like, and I can see that. I think people straight away go, that's from that, and that's fine.
It very much does that for me, and I don't mind that there's nothing new here, because I just really enjoy it. And I would love, there is a campaign that comes with the game, which we have not tried yet, but even without that, it's still my favourite Euro at the moment. It's the one Euro I want to play more than any other Euro, and I'd love to do the campaign and just play through and see how the game changes and all the rest of it. But I think it's excellent.
It's good. I've only played it once, and I tried a strategy that meant I didn't have maybe the best experience of the game, but that was my own fault. I tried to rush the end of the game by not focusing on my ship at all, which is probably what you should be doing, and probably maybe I'd have enjoyed it more. So I kind of want another play of it before I rate it. It's probably why it didn't make my top lists of the year, because it is a good game.
Yeah, and I purely stick by that it picks the better bits, particularly Great Western Trail, which I was less of a fan of, but I still think it's a very good game. Like I said, and as I said, that the main thing is that it's more of a positive game than that, as in I'm always doing things, making myself better, not making other people worse. And yeah, I think, like you said, the travelling through the jungle is quite. I do feel like I'm slowly making my way to the whatever temples or whatever at the end of the jungle, and vice versa. That I am going around the island and trading stuff and like that sort of stuff. And then you've got all the powers you can get from cards that you gain,
great, yeah.
and that does have a lot. As in, you've got a lot of the decision of what am I going to do? Is this going to be a good? But I really want that power or that card is going to be a lot of points in about a turn, like in next round.
Yeah.
This round, you're my only source of this good, and I really need it right now. So yeah, lots of interesting decisions.
Yeah, I don't like the share system in it. I don't think. I went up on the French track, and then you two went up on the English track, and you two are going faster on the English track. And I'm like, well, okay, I've already started, and one of my goals is to get so high on a certain track. Well, I've kind of got to keep going, but obviously, together, you made yourself get both of you way more points than I could.
Yes.
And I went first, so whose fault is it? It's not my fault. It's not like you two have gone on my own track and I've chose a different one. I don't know. I didn't like it.
How do you find that compared to Mombasa's share track?
You can reduce them on Mombasa.
Yes.
So if your company's doing better than mine, I can put them back.
But this only goes one direction.
Yes.
It only ever gets better.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you're going to kind of hold off and not commit too early and try and go with the ones where other people are going.
But my personal goal said I needed to get so high, like the thing you're trying to hit.
Yeah, okay.
So I needed to get. I can't remember exactly which track or how far it was or whatever it did. But I'm like, well, I'm only 2 down it. I might as well keep going.
Okay. I seem to remember my goal was saying in that game I needed to be at least 4 on all the tracks. So I knew to start with I wanted to do a bit on every track, and then depending on what other people are doing, I'll do a lot on that one track.
You didn't do any of your goals.
I thought I did the.
You didn't do any.
No, you didn't.
And because in Mombasa, there's a benefit to going on all the tracks, and you can do several tracks. And this there isn't. I don't think you can realistically, because trying to get to the end is where you get your points. So trying to get to the end of 2, you're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
So I didn't like that aspect of it personally.
Okay.
But I've only played it once. So
We should try and find it again.
Number 11.
The last one for this 10 then is, again, it's been on my list for many years and will remain on the list for many more, I think. I have the collector's edition behind Mark in the corner there, and that is War of the Ring. It's the epic Lord of the Rings 2-player war game, and it really doesn't get any better than this for that super thematic 2-player war game, I think. It's very interesting because it's very asymmetrical. The good side and the evil side, if you like, are played very differently. the forces of evil are much more powerful, which again is very thematic in terms of Lord of the Rings, than the good guys are. And the good guys are not generally going to win by military might. So the bad player sort of stomps around conquering all the cities, and the good player tries to resist them where they can, but ultimately they're trying to sneak the ring through the lines and get it to Mordor. It has a kind of multi-use card system, which makes the decision very interesting, but also when you're rolling the dice are multi-use as well, potentially, depending on which ones you roll. So there's a lot of interesting decisions to be made every time. It's not just a straight war game. It's like, move my troops, roll my dice, attack. You need to think very carefully about how am I going to use my dice, what actions do I want to use this round, which cards am I better playing for their actions now, or should I save them and use them during combat, because they can be very powerful in combat as well. So just very interesting decisions. But has fantastic table presence in terms of all the miniatures, moving them around. It looks great.
Yes, I haven't played it.
Yeah, and I don't think you'd like it.
This is the one. This is the one where the bad guys red. The pieces
in the standard version.
Okay, so I've seen Abram, Chantal, and Michael play it. They played it 3-player weirdly, 2v1, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and it's a bit like Star Wars Rebellion, that the bad guys massively outnumber and massively swarm over the good guys, but the good guys are more skirmishy.
Yeah.
Guerrilla warfare kind of
Their objective is not to beat the bad guy by military might. That is specifically their winning objective. In obviously this is get the ring to Mordor,
or to not let the bad guys win over certain.
I think if you can take out a lower number of the bad guy strongholds, you can also win.
You need to get to 4 points.
Yeah.
Which is very hard to do for the good guys.
I have done that against you once, though, because if
the bad player is sloppy and doesn't keep an eye on it, then it's possible for the good player to win by military might. But usually they're better going off for the
so asymmetrical win conditions are quite nice in games. It's just not my sort of game, I don't think.
I think you'd like all the Euro mechanisms in it. The dice, actions, the card play, I think you'd like all that.
How long does it take to play?
It's long.
Many hours. I mean, I love it. I can remember Rebellion coming out and playing it. I played quite a lot of it, but it never was just as good. It never was as deep and as interesting. It really is. You both sit looking at the other player and think, how am I going to beat you? And you both think the other player has got so much an advantage to you for the entire game until somebody crosses the line. But that's never the case, because the bad guy is so limited by the dice, and like you're having to keep a certain number pulled for the Nazgul to be searching for the ring. So it's like I can't spend all my dice. I want to, but if I need to put some in there, otherwise you're just going to hop all the way through. And they're not doing anything. And then there's the whole. I always say it's just like I'm doing this over here, which means you need to now divert your attention like the eye of Sauron just has to gaze in another direction away from my real target. And it is a game about feint. It's constant feint. And that's why it's amazing.
Because you can move big groups of troops here, but then it's here, and then suddenly this moves here. It's like, what's he doing? Where's he going to attack? Because you really need to make sure you're ready for it when the final attack actually comes.
Yeah, it's the very much the act from the film, or from the book, of just like them attacking in different areas, but actually Sauron's target was there, and that's where he was going for.
Very clever. Really, really well done. So there we go. That is the middle 10 of my top 30 games of all time. Very Euro-dominated. So quite a few Steve's favourites, I think, in this list. But let me tell you, there are no more Euros from here on out. So my top 10, which should be coming out next week, there's far more adventure games. Not exclusively adventure games, but much more theme in the top 10 than in this section.
And I do love a small card game.
Yeah, maybe there's one little card game in there. I do really like heavy Euros. And the solid ones, I'd happily play it again and again and again. But more and more recently, I think, I've been thinking that in terms of my absolute favourite games, I do prefer adventure games. That's my ultimate favourite kind of game, if you like, in terms of genre.
I think they've been very good in the last few years at just pumping them out, and they've all been good as well. The majority of them have been good.
There's been fantastic ones.
I think the amount of development in that area, as in the evolution of games in general, has been better in that area. I think Euros are great and they are getting better, but they're always trying to find. Euros ultimately are going, I need to find a new mechanism, something to make me stand out from the crowd. While I think they've been able to, with theme more thematic games, be able to grab your mechanics to make them a bit better in that way, or they'll be able to have app integration. The amount of ability for them to try and be better, there was just more to move into.
And I think there have been more games which have been developed by teams of people, whereas previously it might have been 2 or 3 guys who sort of get around a table and just plan out an adventure game. There have been whole groups of people, like from writers to artists to developing mechanisms, that have all come together to make really big games with lots of miniatures and interesting adventures to be had. So there are games coming out now that would never have been possible, that you would have never seen 10 years ago. So that's, from my point of view, really exciting. So I'm really looking forward to the top 10, which I say will be next time. Do like and subscribe and hit the bell and all the other buttons that you need to hit these days if you can. It really helps us out a great deal. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.